Mbappe has already scored 31 goals in what has been described as the worst season of his career. Real Madrid are already in the quarter-finals of the Champions League after knocking out Man City and Atletico Madrid. So is Carlo Ancelotti cooking up something big again? And will his master plan succeed in helping Madrid win their first ever treble? As with every season since, more or less the return of Ancelotti for his second spell in charge of Real Madrid. The 2024-25 campaign has again been characterised by unwavering resilience and an unshakable winning mentality, allowing Los Blancos to overcome moments of struggle and hurdle and maintain their competitive edge. The Real Madrid mentality has become notorious for Real Madrid since Ancelotti's return, especially in the Champions League. And before those die-hard Madrid fans go down in the comments and argue that this mentality has always been part of the club, let me remind you what happened against Ajax in 2018-19 or against Man City in the following season. Some might say Ronaldo and Zidane just left when they were eliminated by Ajax. Well, that is exactly what we're talking about. Now in 2024-25, even without the metronome in the middle of the park, Toni Kroos with an aging Luka Modric and with injuries hurting the team, Real Madrid have again qualified for the quarter-finals and have the edge over Arsenal. So yes, the Real Madrid mentality is unrivaled, just like last season when they won the double of La Liga and Champions League with half of their top players gone or injured. That is exactly what we're talking about. Look, every team has to deal with things like our biggest legends are leaving the club or our whole squad is injured, but what's important is how you come out of it. If we take their arch rivals Barcelona for example, the Catalans have yet to win the Champions League after the departure of their greatest legends 10 years after their last European triumph. For comparison, Madrid have already done it twice after the departure of Cristiano and Zidane. And perhaps the most recent example of Madrid's mentality came a few days ago. First, they won a huge knockout match against Atletico Madrid, and less than 72 hours later, they played in one of the toughest places in La Liga, away to Villarreal. Coach Carlo Ancelotti expressed his pride in the character and commitment of his players, highlighting their ability to perform under pressure. Moreover, the Italian made it clear that this is the last time Madrid play with less than 72 hours of rest. Real Madrid's offensive strategy this season has been heavily influenced by a dynamic counter-attacking approach, using the pace and skill of their forwards to exploit opposition defences. Of course, much of the credit for making this tactic work better than ever goes to Kylian Mbappe, who has greatly enhanced Real Madrid's counter-attacking capabilities. His exceptional pace and clinical finishing have been instrumental in the rapid transition from defence to attack. In the second leg playoff against Man City, Mbappe's first two goals demonstrated the effectiveness of this strategy, as the forwards exploited space behind the defence with insane precision. But then there is one important thing here. The team Real Madrid used this attack against, Man City. You probably don't know what I mean, but look, the Citizens are one of those teams who play with a very high defensive line. But there is one team who play their backline even higher, and that is Barcelona. My point here is that with Real Madrid potentially facing their arch rivals 3 times until the end of the season, we can assure you that you will see a very different Real Madrid in attack compared to the early clashes against the Catalans. And I can tell you why. Everyone is focusing on the 4-0 and the 5-2 humiliations in October and January, which is perfectly understandable. But let's not forget that on Mbappe's debut in El Clasico, he was firstly out of form and secondly shocked by the high defensive line that caused him so much trouble that night. As stats had it, he had never been caught offside 8 times in a single game before this match. Then, in January, he actually managed to capitalise on his brilliant ability to exploit space to score the opening goal of the game. But Real Madrid's shaky defence conceded the lead and Mbappe's contribution was neglected. So if Ancelotti can stabilise his defence for the last 2 critical months of the season, we could see the same old Real Madrid doing wonders in the Champions League. And speaking of the Italian maestro, he has been heavily criticised by Real Madrid's faithful this season, which says a lot about those reactionary supporters. You have a manager who has won you 3 Champions Leagues in a decade mate, and you want him out? Look, there is one quality in Ancelotti's expertise that we are unlikely to see again in the near future, and that is his versatility as a manager. It has allowed Real Madrid to adapt seamlessly to different challenges this season and in the past. Unlike managers with rigid systems, Ancelotti adapts his strategies to the strengths and weaknesses of his squad, ensuring optimum performance in different competitions. Sometimes we hear Real Madrid fans say, but why can't we control the game in El Clasico like Barcelona? And before we explain that, let's back it up with some statistics. The Copa del Rey semi-final first leg of the 2022-23 season was the last meeting between Madrid and Barcelona, in which Los Blancos had the upper hand in possession. Since then, there have been 7 El Clasicos, and Barcelona have always had more than 50% of the possession. So here is the explanation. Why would you want to control the game when you have pacey players like Vinicius, Mbappe and Rodrigo up front? It was the same in the mid-2010s, with Ronaldo and Bale in the team. Realistically, the only 2 seasons of Ancelotti's Real Madrid reign in which he emphasised controlling the game were 2021-22 and 2022-23, when Karim Benzema was the number 9. If you remember, the Frenchman often dropped deep to receive the ball and build the attack 30 or even 40 metres from goal. This is yet another example of Ancelotti's adaptability. Of course, when we talk about managerial versatility, we also mean how the coach manages his squad in injury-plagued periods. This season, Ancelotti has made effective use of midfielders out of their natural roles. However, key decisions such as playing Camavinga at left back, Fed on the right or Jude as a wide midfielder have been critical in keeping Real Madrid competitive. So, one big question for all those Ancelotti haters. Can you imagine Madrid still challenging for the treble without the Italian in charge? One of Real Madrid's greatest strengths this season has been their ability to balance experience with youth, ensuring they remain competitive while developing their next generation of superstars. Unlike some clubs that rely heavily on a fixed starting 11, Ancelotti has masterfully rotated his squad, keeping his key players fresh and bringing in young talent at the right time. The most striking example, of course, has been Raul Asensio. Just when things were going from bad to worse, when Eder Militao went out with an ACL injury, and Madrid had just lost to Barcelona and Milan in the space of a few days, the light at the end of the tunnel came in the form of Raul Asensio. Aside from literally saving Madrid's defence, with only Rudiger fit at the time, Asensio's appearance came at even greater cost. In times when people mock Real Madrid for their academy being not so fruitful in terms of talent, saying that La Fabrica is miles off Barcelona's La Masia, well, Asensio is the perfect example that Real Madrid youth ranks are doing their work brilliantly. However, Real Madrid's success with young talent could also be backed up by the presence of Arda Güler and Endrick. Specifically in relation to the 18-year-old Brazilian talent, many have criticised Ancelotti and the Real Madrid coaching staff for not giving him enough game time. Well, is there anyone who imagined Endrick playing 90 minutes every game? Our honest opinion is that here, Ancelotti has once again made the right decision. Of course, not everyone is like Lamine Yamal or Ethan Nwaneri, who burst onto the scene as 16 or 17-year-olds. And to be fair, Endrick had his moments in the Copa del Rey. Say what you will, but Endrick is actually the competition's second highest scorer with 4 goals, just 1 less than Julian Alvarez. Moreover, unlike Ferran Torres, who has 4 goals with 3 of them in 1 game, Endrick has been Madrid's biggest contributor in the Copa del Rey this season, scoring in 3 different stages of the tournament. In the last 16 against Celta, when his brace won the game for Madrid, in the quarter-finals against Leganes, and the winner in the semi-finals first leg against Real Sociedad. In conclusion, Real Madrid's future is in safe hands, and both Endrick, 6 goals this season, and Arda Güler, 3 goals and 5 assists, have bright futures at the Bernabeu. Yes, dreams are free, but could Real Madrid win their first ever treble in history this season? I know that may sound exaggerated as of March, especially when they are trailing by 3 points and a game less than Barcelona in La Liga, but give your honest opinion in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, or if you want to learn more about the amazing story of Carlos Tevez, just click on our latest upload. Catch you there.